I now invite you to begin to move into your center and to just become still as we enter into our time of meditation together. Just beginning to feel the breath, the rooting of the feet to Mother Earth, and just allowing the body to just relax however's most comfortable to you, allowing the chair or the ground to support you. And I invite you to silently repeat the following affirmation. My faith keeps me focused on the God within. My faith keeps me focused on the God within. And just allow yourself to continue to just focus on that statement and to feel that statement and what that means. Part of it lies in the understanding that things happen all around us. But we also know that we're free to always choose what happens within. Knowing that our perception determines our experience. And knowing that it always begins with faith. Knowing that today I choose to see my vibrant wholeness. That vibrant wholeness that is always present, no matter the circumstance. Knowing that today and in this moment, my heart is open. My mind is open. Knowing that I am harmonious in every circumstance. Knowing again that my faith keeps me focused on the God within. Knowing that when my needs appear greater than my resources, I always remind myself that supply springs forth from the inexhaustible well of divine substance. Knowing again that my faith keeps me focused on the God within. as we prepare to enter into our moment of silence, we go into that silence again with the statement and the affirmation of knowing that my faith keeps me focused on the God within as we enter into our moment of silence. And as we begin to bring our awareness back to this room and back to this present moment, I am reassured, always reassured, by remembering that all situations are temporary and that the God in me is greater than every circumstance. For it is through my faith in which I align my thoughts with the divine. And I fully believe, and I know, and I affirm in this truth that sets me free. Knowing that my faith keeps me focused on the God within. And so it is. Namaste. I know I've said this before, but it's been a little while, but I don't think there's one instrument that Pete cannot play. I would be surprised. Oh, so how's everybody feeling today? I'm having to get used to looking at everybody in the sanctuary again, since I'm used to just looking this way, but I would take y'all back in person anytime, so I'm glad to have everybody here. So today's talk is interesting because it's actually one of the first talks that I ever gave before I was a minister at all. And in fact, I have it on DVD, and I forced myself to go back and listen to it. And I forced myself that I would never give this talk again. It's not because the information is bad, because I think the information is okay, but let's just say there's a reason that practice is so very important, and that includes public speaking. But anyway, but this talk has been updated, so I won't take you back to that exact talk, and you'll hear a new version today, so that's good to know. It's like version, 4.0 or whatever. But I felt that a lot of the information was really applicable today, especially as we begin to start to see the light at the end of COVID and this pandemic. Is anybody else feeling that way? And feeling a little bit of excitement for it? And those of you watching our live stream, are you feeling that excitement for it? Yeah, I know that I am. That excitement as we begin to kind of dip our toe back in the water, so to speak. Imagining how life is going to be from this moment forward, as we begin to move forward and whatever this new normal, so to speak, is starting to look like. Now, as you're all aware, we recently celebrated Mother's Day, and, on that day, I always typically think about some of the great women in my life that influenced me, both past and present, and, the wisdom and the strengths and, the things that these women just shared with me and that helped shape me, and the light that they shined and continue to shine to this day. And I'm going to tell you in a little while about a very strong woman in my life and how life is full of great teachers and how life itself is one of our greatest teachers. How life itself provides all of the directions and the signs that we need to assist us along our journey of life. But the catch is that we have to choose to open our eyes and allow ourselves to see those signs, right? So to start, I think about this past year. Who doesn't, right? How life was so different for so many of us. For some, life almost just simply stopped. And it didn't always necessarily feel like it was in a good way. It was a time of wishing that things were different during that time. Wishing we could just peel off the masks and just get things back to the way that they were. Wishing we could see everybody in person again, our family and our friends. Wishing we could go back and being among crowds and giving hugs to each other. That just, it's to the point now where, we'll go up and give each other hugs and it feels a little awkward right now, huh? It feels good yet awkward kind of at the same time. But, the thing about it is that, we were in the thick of it about this time last year. We were in the pandemic and no amount of wishing at that moment was going to change it right then. Right? We could wish all we want, but we were still in the middle of this pandemic. Life had thrown us this very different opportunity that we had likely never really seen before. Of course, that opportunity wasn't the same for each of us. We all saw it probably a little bit differently. But only each of us could discern that for ourselves, what it meant for each of us. Some of us spent good amounts of time wishing it was different, though. I know I did, if I'm being honest. Kind of new here and the church shuts down and I'm like, what in the heck just happened? I've got to get up there and give these live stream talks for people that barely know me. What am I going to do? But it's almost as if, one day we're just moving full speed ahead, just, our rainbows and unicorns, just living our lives. And then suddenly, boom, we just run dead into this brick wall and there's nowhere to go all of a sudden. But what if we'd paid attention to the signs? To the opportunities maybe that life was presenting to us in that moment. Maybe when we'd gotten to that brick wall, we would have found a ladder for an easier way to get over it. And of course, we don't always experience times like last year, thank goodness, right? But life still finds a way. It finds a way to sometimes force us to slow down. And to pay attention and to learn what it is that life is offering us. And it's important that we pay attention to the signs because if we don't, life is still going to find a way. And it often finds a way through what I like to call Life University. Now, the great woman I mentioned, a little bit earlier, her name was Roxy. And I think I've mentioned her here before, but she was my great-grandmother. Now, grandmother, she had this zest for life. And she always lived her life fully present in each and every moment. And she always asked herself what life was teaching her in those moments. I remember one day grandmother looks at me and she says, life is a university. It's a school. And sometimes we're so busy running around living in the future or waiting for the next big thing to happen that we seldom ever slow down to just listen what life through its own university is trying to teach us. Now, grandmother was a bit more traditional in her beliefs, and she was always quoting the Bible and this and that. But the thing I always admired about her was that she lived it. She didn't just quote it and go on. She lived it. But the good thing about Life University is that we're all invited to attend. And we don't even have to apply for it or to it because we're already all accepted. So that's the good news. And it's free too. It doesn't cost any money out of your pocketbook, right? The way college does nowadays. But the important thing about Life University is that it's all strictly up to you. You choose your curriculum, you choose how hard you study, and you choose whether or not you learn from it. So that's the good news. It's all your choice. Now, Emily Cady, one of Unity's most revered teachers, she states in her book, Lessons in Truth, she says, "What is this understanding on the getting of which depends so much? Is it intellectual lore obtained from delving deep into books of other men's or women's making? It is knowledge obtained from studying rocks, stars, or even the human body? Nay, verily, for when did such knowledge ever ensure life and health and peace, ways of pleasantness with riches and honor?" She goes on to say, "Intellectual lore can be bought and sold. Understanding or realization cannot." So we all have these dreams and passions and wants in our life, right? These things that we want to do, these things that we want to accomplish. But aren't some of us just flying so quickly through life that we often ignore the experiences and the teachings that life is so readily providing for us? Therefore, just completely sometimes missing out on some of the most amazing opportunities that are right there in front of us. So I'm going to share a little bit about what grandmother shared with me today in Life University. Lesson number 1. I was like, okay, making sure, okay. You have to open your mind to receive and create a vision. You have to open your mind to receive and create a vision. So let's think about it for a second. What happens if you take a cup and you turn it upside down on the table and you try to pour water into it? Anybody ever tried that? I wouldn't recommend it, but what's going to happen? The water is going to splash everywhere but inside the cup, right? It's not going to land in the cup, allowing us to pick it up and drink it and fill our bodies full of this good, pure water. So what would you do to fill that cup? You would just simply pick it up and turn it over. And the power to turn that cup over lies within you, right? You've got the power to pick that cup up and turn it over. You don't need to go onto your computer and put into Google, how do I sip water out of a cup? And we don't do that because it's ingrained, right? It's something that we learned a long time ago. And our minds are really the same way. If we want to receive the good, we must open our minds so that they're able to receive, just like we open the cup so it's able to receive the water. Otherwise, your mind's going to work just like that upside down cup. The good's going to splash all around it, but it won't land inside the cup for you to use. Although you may not have realized it at the time, a vision passed through your mind, even if only subconsciously to turn that cup over. You just knew how to place that cup on the table. That's why it's so important to create your vision. I must visualize where I want to go, right? We have to visualize in life where we want to go, what we want to be, how we're going to accomplish this. What we want to see manifest in our lives. An idea or a vision of something always comes before an action. In fact, this is the Holy Trinity here at Unity: mind, idea, and expression. Helen Keller once stated, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." Yeah, how powerful is that statement? Having that clear vision in your life releases this extraordinary power. Doesn't mean that you obtain extraordinary power. it releases this extraordinary power that you already have. This extraordinary power that you already are. And you may be saying, okay, Evin, I hear you. But how is it that I create my vision? How in the world do I keep my ego from shooting me down and telling me that it's impossible? First thing you have to do is be very specific in your vision. Because if you aren't sure where you even want to go yourself, how is the universe going to know where to send you? You know, astronauts don't get to the moon by just programming some random destination in the space shuttle, do they? They have to specifically program where they want to go. Otherwise, they might still find themselves wandering around in space 10 years later. I don't think I would want that. I don't know about you. But you also have to realize that you become what you envision yourself being. That's the way our life tends to work. Life tends to take us with what we are envisioning ourselves as being and doing. I think back because when I was a kid, I had one of those little plastic telescopes. You know, my friends and I would sometimes turn it around and we'd look through the big end of it. And it would make the moon seem so far away. But however, when we would turn it around, everything would look completely different. It felt like at that point that you could just reach out and touch the moon. But don't you sometimes feel that way when you think about those desires you want in your life? Don't they seem like they're just really far away sometimes? Maybe those dreams look so distant because you're looking through the wrong end. Maybe you simply just need to turn that telescope around. And this is something that we have talked about. You know, if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me mention this before, but write it down. Mindy and I, we kind of laugh sometimes. Mindy, my wife, for those of you who don't know, it was probably 2 years after we met, I found a piece of paper in my glove box in my car. And I had written down everything that I wanted in my life partner. And Mindy checked just about every single box on that piece of paper. In fact, today, it's been 10 years ago, and she asked, she's like, do you still have that piece of paper? And I don't know if I still have it, but it just becomes so important to write it down. Always write down what it is that you envision and what it is that you want to see manifest in your life. And be specific. If you want a red car with white interior that's a 5-speed stick shift, write it down. Don't be afraid. Yeah, nothing is too big and nothing is too small. Life University lesson number 2. The Buddha said, what we think, we become. In his book, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen stated, a man or woman is literally what they think. His or her character being the complete sum of his or her thoughts. Proverbs 23:7 of the Bible states, as a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so is he or she. And then Tony Robbins, beliefs have the power to create and the power to destroy. So whichever one of those you select, whichever one of those resonates with you, if any, they all really have the same meaning. We are whatever we think we are. And better yet, we are what we repeatedly think we are. Taking control of your life starts in here. It starts with your thoughts. If you are serious about changing those things in your life that you wish to change, you must start with your thoughts, your beliefs. The beliefs you hold about the world and yourself shape your reality. It shapes what's going on in front of you. Your beliefs begin to define who you are. Everything that you have or do not have in your life can often be traced right back to your beliefs and your thoughts, right? Your level of success is often directly tied to your beliefs. So if you want to start to gain control of those things you want to see manifest in your life, you must begin by starting to be conscious, become aware of these beliefs. And this can be done by first removing some of those limiting beliefs that you hold and replacing them with those empowering beliefs. Those beliefs about you that are true. Those beliefs about you that are what you really are, what and who you really are. But first, what is a belief? What really is a belief? A belief is a feeling of certainty about what something means. Now, the trouble with beliefs is that most of our beliefs are global or generalized statements about our past, and I'll explain. These are usually about our past that were ingrained during childhood or early adolescence, those things we maybe subconsciously started hearing and started believing about ourselves. And they're often based on those experiences in our life that we perceive as negative or positive. Now, the danger is when sometimes these experiences that we perceive as negative that occurred in childhood are still ingrained today, and we still believe them today. You know, what you are and are not willing to try in your life can often be stymied by those beliefs. Now, some of these deeply held beliefs tend to be very general statements, and I'll give you some examples. Like maybe, I'm not smart enough or I'm not skilled enough. I'm not good enough. Life is unfair. Making money is difficult. Anybody ever have those before? I know that I have. I've had some of those beliefs before. I've made some of those statements out loud before. But it's no surprise that when we have these statements and we say these statements and we think these statements and we believe these statements, that we'll feel that there's times in life that are just this real struggle. For instance, if you have the belief that you're not skilled enough, then you're often going to think, behave, and act in accordance with that belief that you're not skilled enough. And this is going to stop you. This is going to put that brick wall in front of you of living up to your true potential. Because you'll likely behave and act in accordance with that belief, whether it's true or not. And oftentimes, we rarely even evaluate our beliefs. We just take them at face value. Somebody must have said it at one point. Oh, so it must be true. I believe it and it must be true. But sometimes if we dig a little bit deeper, we'll find that there's just not much credence to that belief. You have the ability to become more skilled, right? We have the ability to become more skilled, to gain more experience. But for most people, that limiting a belief is going to stop them because you have to see beyond. You have to see that it's not true. But the good news is all our beliefs are learned. Therefore, they can all be unlearned as well. But to do this, and this is Life University lesson number 3, you must replace those limiting beliefs with empowering beliefs. But how is it that we do that? First, we have to identify. We have to identify those limiting beliefs that we want to change. Maybe you feel you're not tall enough. Maybe you feel you're not skilled enough. Whatever it is, identify that belief. And you can often identify it if you listen to your thoughts and those things that are constantly running through your head, those things that aren't true. And gain leverage. Begin to gain leverage. How is this limiting belief, how has this limiting belief in your life held you back? Maybe you were passed over for a promotion at work or a volunteer opportunity because you were afraid to speak up. The more emotional and stronger you can make it to identify with it, the better. Gain leverage. And experience. Can you think about a time where you didn't allow that belief to hold you back? We tend to only focus on events that support that limiting belief rather than on those occasions that we were successful, rather than on those occasions when we told ourselves that it wasn't true. And here at Unity, and probably a lot of spiritual practices, we talk about affirmations. Identify your new powering belief, create your affirmation around that. And get motivated. Ask yourself how this new belief in your life, once you've created your affirmation, ask yourself how that new belief is going to benefit your life in moving forward. The more emotion you can tie to that, the stronger it's going to be. And internalize the belief. We hear about living from that place of being. We don't live in the future, but we hold that it's true right now because it really is. There's nothing we can't accomplish, right? So internalize that belief. Start to visualize yourself behaving as if it's true right now. Because when you do this, you're going to feel what it's like to be in that place, and you're going to draw it to you. The universe is going to respond and gain momentum. You know, all it starts is with a step, right? Every new thing we do starts with taking one step. Start taking small steps to support your new belief. You know, maybe you're thinking about starting your own business. You know, thinking about those different ideas around starting that business and such, or any new adventure. You know, but if you aren't careful, you may still find yourself in the planning stages a year from now. Take action. Don't just sit on it. Those ideas are coming to you for a reason. Don't just sit on it. Take action. Take that first step. And replace the word have with get. And I'll explain that. You know, do you ever notice how many times we say we have to do something? Oh gosh, I'm like the king of that. You know, I have to go to the grocery store. And this is like around COVID, okay? Because during COVID, I can understand that a lot of us didn't want to do that. But, you know, I have to go to the grocery store. I have to go to work. I have to show up at church to be the celebration assistant. I'm just giving Josie a hard time. But, you know, I have to pay my bills. Now change this one word to get and see what happens. You know, I get to go to work. I get to go grocery shopping. I get to be the celebration assistant. Even I get to pay my bills. Because your attitude quickly changes from needing to fulfill obligations to being grateful for the things we've become accustomed to having. You know, a job to support you or an income to support you and your family. You know, food on the table, a roof over your head. You know, try to make this change when you're thinking to yourself, and you may feel and appear happier and less stressed. So back to grandmother, you know, I feel very blessed because I was blessed enough to have my great-grandmother in my life for 29 years. Yeah, she made her transition when I was 29, but I still, to this day, will never forget the way she lived her life and the wisdom that she imparted to me. You know, one thing I want to leave with you is this. You know, there is no pass or fail at Life University. There's no grand test at the end, no pop quizzes. There are only ideas and choices. And it's up to you about whether or not you choose to grab onto those and learn, or whether you choose to just let them bypass entirely. And you can choose to take some classes more than once. That's okay. You can take repeat classes if you choose. You know, you can choose to try to skip some of them, although they're going to resurface on your schedule at a later date. I learned that in school, in high school, when I skipped classes. You know, my dad was a police officer. I grew up with a dad as a police officer, and I skipped school one day. I think it was like my junior year. Me and my friends are driving down the road in my car. We passed my dad in his police car. And he tells me, he's like, I started to pull you over. But of course, I get home from school that day, and he's like, why weren't you in school? I looked at him and said, I was in school. Well, I probably should have told him I was in school at least that morning, but not that afternoon. But anyway, that's off subject. So you can skip some of them, but they may show up on your schedule at a later date. But one thing about Life University, it's never too late to begin. It doesn't matter our age. It doesn't matter where we are in life. It's never too late to begin. But there's always a seat right up in front waiting for you, even if the front row's empty. But there's always a seat waiting for you in the front row. All you have to do is be willing to take it. Namaste.